Alright, we are back.
Welcome to episode 26 of the Last American Podcast.
It keeps coming and it won't go away.
Seriously though, we're probably on like episode 9. More realistically, I'd guess we're probably closer to 9.
It's either here nor there.
26 sounds more official.
Anyways, we just got through the episode on marriage and now we're getting into some
debt. The American
debt
culture.
The Last American Podcast.
Why does everybody in this society finance everything? It's like people go to school, they finance their education, they finance a house, they finance cars.
Mm-hmm.
Why is nobody living within their means and just... I mean, why don't you save up to buy a house? Why don't you save up to buy a car? Why don't why do you just not buy a car rather than finance a depreciating asset? You know,
okay, this is a great topic. We kind of just talked about this before. The idea that you can work your way through like the normal, like back when, where you like worked hard and like made your means and like paid off your debts like on time. That stuff is like old school, and now we're in this like hyper crypto debt where it's just like, just take on a bunch of debt and have no idea what you're doing and just basically debt your whole life away.
I mean, it's insane when you look at people's debt to income ratios. You know, I was looking at this guy, just some random real estate agent on Instagram who I would never trust to begin with, but he was saying like, it's completely normal to buy a house and have a debt-to-income ratio of 50%. So it's immediately out the door, 50% of your money's gone. And then I'm sure on top of that, there's student loan debt, there's car debt.
The great thing about it is that...
credit card debt.
Those are the people that don't have a family, so literally they're alone in their house that they're like dying in.
No, I don't think single... I think single families are... single people are the least likely to buy a house, I think.
Really?
Yeah. It's that...
Suckers?
Yeah, no, it's always like typically it's either real estate investors who are trying to get a cash on return, or it's like a single family, and it's always like, hey...
Yeah,
or
it's BlackRock, Vanguard,
yeah,
State Street,
yeah,
trying to muscle their way into the market.
But I'm talking about individuals here. This is the American individual.
Yeah,
so it's usually like, you know, hey, me and my chick are having a kid, we need a starter home, is like the typical way people typically get into buying a house.
Yeah, and it's rough out there because the interest rates are going up.
My opinion, what's funny is before this, when everything started, and we started printing money, my initial prediction probably 2.5 years ago now was 10%. I said interest rates are going to have to go to 10% and hold, and people told me I was crazy.
Right. And,
they're still ticking up.
Yeah.
Unemployment is still staying steady.
Yeah.
A couple things want to keep going up, and it's like, inflation's on its way up, and it's like, and it shows 7.5% isn't enough.
The market isn't exactly how it used to be, where you used to be able to say like, oh, the unemployment's this, or this many new jobs and all that stuff. That stuff doesn't matter because there's all these new patterns that we don't understand. It's like trying to understand the 2023 stock market. It's like ever since Elon and crypto, and it's like the stock market doesn't make any sense to anybody anymore.
Yeah,
the fundamentals are out the window.
Well, the fundamentals are out the window. The new fundamental is what has hype.
Right.
And all it takes is somebody to think it's cool. It doesn't matter if there's a dividend or it's just growth. People just chase growth stocks and hype drives it.
I'm still driving and listening to AM radio, so I hear the old wisdom coming through the radio waves, and they're like, oh, once bond yields are become high interest, people are going to dump the stock market and go into high interest bonds. And like, wasn't that what the banks got in trouble doing? They got all these high interest bonds and they all defaulted.
What's funny is my dad told me he lost a ton of money in bonds when he was younger, and I was like, okay, like, note to self,
So I don't know, like, whenever you hear these old timers talk, you're like, wait, didn't like 4 different banks go under because they had bonds?
I mean, for me, my personal stocks that I really like is anything that pays a dividend. You know,
Yeah.
rather than chasing growth stocks, like I just prefer something that's going to put cash in my pocket every single month or quarterly, and that's really more what I'm into.
So there's the major debts that we all have, right? Like the major debts of this culture is student debt, which is mandatory because everyone has to go to college for some reason. Then we have credit card debt, which is basically what was the statistic? It was like mostly women, like all credit card debt.
Yeah.
It was like crazy.
Yeah, it was a pretty high statistic, and as of today, which is I believe is 10/7/23, even if you have over 800 credit score, you're in the low 20%.
Yeah.
And then if you're in the average range, you're about 26, and if you have bad credit, you're pretty close to 30%.
Wow.
Interest rate, and people are still continuing to spend on their credit cards. So now you're buying
what's
something.
great is they have the student debt. They are complaining because they want to buy a house, which is more debt, and their credit card's out of control, and they're going to buy $15 lunches every day, or $15. What am I talking about? Like $30 lunches now. We're into 2023.
Yeah, it's 2023. You know what's funny though is I've just always lived within my means. I buy, I try to buy things I can afford,
right?
And I just don't understand. You know, like when I go broke, I am broke.
Well, here's the thing about broke people. Now we have layaway installment payments for everything. So like you feel like you're never gonna go broke. You're like, wait, why would I pay $500 to fly to New York when I could just pay $30 a month for
24 months?
For the next 24 months. Like, why would I just pay a lump sum? And everything turns into like a Netflix installment payment. And you're just doing this your whole life, and then you look at your paycheck and you're like, where's my life going?
I don't want to sound like the typical American, but I financed this poster behind us, and I actually made 12 payments of $3.99 over the course of 12 months to get this beautiful poster, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. Thank you, Affirm. No, I'm kidding.
It's crazy how much, because it used to just be like home furniture, right? They're like, because the salespeople on the floor were like, what can I get you to buy this couch right now? Like you don't have any money in your pocket? Guess what? 0 payment for 18 months. You're like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, what if the furniture place goes out of business in 18 months? Like, so and then it's just basically went everywhere. Like,
well, that's because they
now
sell,
I have like art supplies. Be like, put a down payment on your paintbrushes that are $10, and you're like, installment payments of $1 for 12 months. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's I just don't and it's like, so what is the long-term ramifications? Because it's shown that the vast majority of people don't have really any money to their name, no 401k, no savings. And so what's going to happen when this generation gets to retirement age? And it's like,
I don't even think it's going to go that far. It's more like what's going to happen when actually people start to collect. Like, what's going to happen? Because people are, like, going to, in 2008, 2009, people were foreclosing, right?
Yeah.
And that was still the real world. Now we are in a beyond real world where where Uber hasn't made a profit, which doesn't make any sense because they've been in business for like 10 years.
I paid on Affirm for my Uber here. I'll actually be paying that for the next 12 months.
So it's like, we don't understand what's going to happen because we've never let anyone fail anymore. Like, and not only do we not let people fail, this is nothing to do with anything. We let people into the country and then give them free stuff, and we don't have any money for anybody else. It's completely crazy. And they're supposedly coming a Black Monday this month, which is funny because we've already had 2 in October already.
Well, what's funny is this could all be complete hearsay, and I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, which will be way past the date.
I'm trying to get quick on that.
And then, but it's funny because I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and they're all predictions, but the market has been trending down heavily over the last 2 weeks, and it's kind of looking like, I'd say probably 15% down, 10-15 range down over the last 2 weeks. And it kind of looks like we're rolling over, and the interest rates are finally starting to affect. The market's kind of pricing in the higher for longer approach rather than, I'm not sure people really thought that the interest rates would go up to 7 and then just hit the mountain and then go down. I mean, we have to really break this economy. We've printed $30 trillion.
It's getting crazy.
Spending, now we pay $30 for lunch.
And, like, when you think about it in a home loan, it's so crazy because home prices are so, like, 7%, 7.6% on a 20-year loan is not a big deal if your house was worth $40,000.
Yeah.
But when your house is worth, like, $800,000 to $1 million,
yeah.
That's $70,000 a month. I mean, $70 grand a year.
Yeah,
$70,000 a year in interest, not to pay the house.
Yeah,
like just to pay the bank.
I saw this statistic the other day that said if you buy a house for $300,000 with a 7% interest rate. At the end of a 30-year loan, you would have paid $890,000 for that house, and it was kind of like, wow, and I'm close. Don't quote me on exact numbers, but that's about what it's going to be. And I was pretty blown away to think that it's like, wow, you're paying $1 million for a $300,000 house, like
like that is basically the old world version of usury. Like literally, people you get stoned for this. It's basically like a card game. Where you get hustled.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a bank hustle. And
well, yeah, I mean, the bank, you buy a $300,000
and what is the bank doing? They're like,
fine.
well, we're giving you capital, and like, so you should owe us like $1 trillion. Like, this is payday loan, like.
Yeah, it is.
Totally.
And I mean, I still think and to me, I think the lending industry as a whole is almost criminal. I mean, I'm a person who pays for everything with money I have, so like I couldn't imagine. I don't know when America turned into
unless it was a nice poster which you have to put on layaway.
Yeah. The greatest investment of my life.
So yeah, there's just we just live in a different world where we don't have the moral center to be like, wait, this is criminal what's happening. And I think it's because people are so in debt that we're just like, you know what? They should feel some pain because they've been living in la la land forever.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
There's some point to like the pain coming, but like if this was like for no reason, people were charging insane interest rates. You're like, oh, by the way, you're gonna like double your house payment just from the money you owe us. Like it's not the payment of the house.
Well, that's a really good point, but it's like. I really think what we're going to go into is, I don't think even anything would happen. I think everybody racks up a ton of interest.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to see massive bankruptcies like we should see. I think people will cry about it.
Yeah.
President Joe Biden will either print more money or bail everybody out.
Yeah, and inflation is going to keep going up.
And inflation will keep going up. And that seems to me, from what I've seen over the past couple of years, like the most reasonable answer I could expect.
And this is without like the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency, like basically tampering with the idea of the fundamentals of the U.S. economy, right? Because when the collapse starts, they're like, whoa, should we ditch the USD? Should we go? And at this point. No one trusts anybody, so the U.S. dollar is still king, right? Because BRICS is just starting to, collect gold. Start.
You know what's really funny is when I first heard of Bitcoin in about it was probably 2013, and it was like sitting around like $300 a share or per coin.
This is gonna be a sad story, by the way.
No,
it's like I could have bought it.
Well, I did.
And made like $100 million. I
should have bought more, but
it's about debt, not about missed opportunity.
Well, no, it's not about missed opportunity. But at the time, somebody told me they're like, this could be worth $1 million, and I looked at it and I thought, there's no way this could ever be worth $1 million. But what I didn't think is that the value of $1 could go down.
That's what
so
they've been
far.
saying
and that's the thing is it's like so. In my eyes, Bitcoin could totally reach $1 million, but by the time Bitcoin reaches $1 million,
it'll be our current day version of $100,000. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so it's
our purchasing power versus the actual value is different.
Yeah, by far, and it was like it just didn't put that together when I was younger, and then like now looking at it. And seeing how inflation is going up, the dollar is losing value, and I still think it's all kind of rigged up. I mean, in my eyes, everything should have collapsed when SVB went under.
Yeah, there
That
was supposed to be there was a dominoes happening.
There should have been a domino effect that would have kind of been the edge that we all fell off and would have dropped us into a recession, but the government decided to print more money, which instead created more inflation, and then protected everyone's money over $250,000, which wasn't guaranteed.
Which was insane because like a bunch of millionaires, they just gave them the money, and the bank's like, we don't even have it. Like you're just giving the money. This doesn't make any sense. What you're doing.
Yeah. So it's like and so it's like we continue to devalue our currency. I think a couple more banks will default in our lifetime. And people can't feel pain, people can't feel loss. So to just keep the money printer on, the same deal is I mean, a house is $1 million now, but the spending power of $1 million is comparable to what $100,000 was in 1985. You know, so it's kind of crazy.
This is what we're living in. This is the episode of debt. Yeah, and it's been good.
It's been good. Have a good night.
All right, guys.
God, it's hot as fuck. Get me out of this thing.
We have 4 minutes. Okay.